welcome everybody to ODI. This is a book launch, Poverty Dynamics, Interdisciplinary Perspective. This is a book which has been produced and worked by the Chronic Poverty Research Centre and others. We're launching it today. The format is going to be that David Hulme and Tony Addison will make short presentations about the book, drawing out some of the major themes. Paul Schaffer will discuss those presentations and make some comments. Tony Addison and David Hulme are both from Manchester University. Tony is currently director of the Brooks World Poverty Institute, and David is associate director at the Brooks and Leverhulme Research Professor. Both are also directors of the Chronic Poverty Research Centre. And Paul Schaffer is from the Centre of International Studies, University of Toronto, and he's with us doing the midterm review of the Chronic Poverty Research Centre. We kind of timed it so that you could participate in that. So I'll just hand over to David to do a presentation, and we'll then have time for discussion, and there's a little bit of social time afterwards. There's a bit of juice and small eats that we can take advantage of. David.
Okay, that's great on that. I'll do the warming up because Tony's an economist, so he'll do all the serious business stuff. Set the context. No, the book that we're launching is called Poverty Dynamics, Interdisciplinary Perspectives. Tony and I are editors of it, but also Ravi Kanga at Cornell University has put lots of work into it, so I want to say thanks to make sure that Ravi is thanked for that. But actually this is a much broader project coming out of the Chronic Poverty Research Centre, and the papers that we've got reflect Chronic Poverty Research Centre work in Africa, in Asia, and also with collaborators in the UK, in other parts of Europe, and in the USA, so it's a real team effort. What the book tries to do is to push forward thinking on poverty analysis a little bit. There's been masses of research on poverty in recent years. Poverty research has been a growth area which has been good for researchers. It's a pity that so many people are poor and remain poor, and the prospects of getting out of poverty, particularly in recent events, don't look too good. But if you actually review what's been happening in poverty research, then there are two areas where one can see real advances over the last 20 to 25 years, but one area where we think the advances haven't been strong enough, and that's what this book focuses on. One looks at the sort of success, then there's been real success with what one could call the breadth of analysis about poverty. But now almost everybody says that poverty is multidimensional and is pushing that idea. Sen's been very important on that, but a lot of other writers have been involved in that. One finds that even books that are very narrowly focused on income poverty, always in their introduction, they remind you that poverty is multidimensional before they focus only on one dimension for 200 or 300 pages. There's also been progress in a way in understanding the depth of poverty, the measurement of poverty, particularly through the Foster, Greer, Thorbeck measures, but also in terms of other dimensions. Most countries nowadays in their poverty analysis will separate out the extreme poor from the moderately poor. Part of the Chronic Poverty Research Centre's work has been trying to get people to move beyond that and think about how they fit in a third dimension. And it's that third dimension, I suppose, that we've pushed in this book. It's actually trying to work out how you fit time into poverty analysis, and how you look at the duration of poverty and the different experiences that people have with poverty at different times in their lives and over different periods of time. And that's why the book focuses on poverty dynamics. Much poverty work, if you look at it, is tended to look at populations, and it looks at populations over time, and it will say that things are getting better or worse. But actually this book is arguing that one needs to look at the individual level, at the life course, to understand the experience of poverty and the consequences of poverty at different stages in the life course, and also to think across generations, particularly a lot of the work and major research thing for the Chronic Poverty Research Centre has been looking at what we call the intergenerational transmission of poverty, where children are born into poverty, and the types of childhoods which their parents and the communities in which they live, which are created for them, make it highly likely that they will spend their lives in poverty because they can't get the education and skills, they can't develop their cognitive abilities and even their physical stature because of the world in which they live. And so we're arguing very strongly that we need to be tracking over the life course and over generations what is happening to poverty. Then you can understand much more some of the specific things that happen. We need to fit multidimensionality into this. Because most work on poverty dynamics, most of the work that's been done on panel data sets and upon the way that poverty changes over the life course is focusing exclusively on income poverty or expenditure poverty. And it's good that people are looking at life course changes with that sort of information, but the limited amount of work that's been done, and some of that work is presented in this book by Stephen Klassen. When you look at different elements of poverty, different dimensions of poverty, one finds that things may be moving at different rates or in different directions. And so we definitely need to move beyond this focus on income poverty. Income is actually, it's extremely difficult to get good information on it. We've got the information this week on it. And income is something that really fluctuates a lot. So if you're following it over the life course, you're likely to get a lot of indicators, stochastic movement. When you look at other dimensions, things such as health status, things such as nutritional level, then they tend to actually be much steadier. So it's much better to look at that. We're also arguing for a cross-disciplinary approach, trying to get economists and encourage economists who are probably about 80–90% of poverty research, and big research on poverty dynamics at the moment, but trying to get them to work with sociologists, anthropologists, political scientists, and trying to get teams of people to work on poverty dynamics. Because what one finds with these measurement approaches, which economists and econometricians are tending to use, is they're very good at identifying correlations, but they're much weaker at getting down to what the actual causes, what the complex dynamics are that are actually trapping people in poverty or allowing people to improve their situation. And we're arguing cross-disciplinary approaches, qualitative approaches can add to the understanding. So the big message is that the frontier that everybody should be working on is poverty dynamics, and there needs to be this cross-disciplinary approach to this. I'm just thinking, and I'll just do a couple of slides about time and poverty, trying to get the analysis of what happens over time with poverty. It's very important to do this because there are very different things happening to poor people. I can imagine in hypothetical countries, you can actually get the same headcount figures for poverty, you can get the same poverty gap measures, the same poverty squared measures in a country, but actually the nature of poverty in those two countries can be extremely different. In one of those countries, then poverty can be something which is spread across a large part of the population and is a temporary phenomena which happens to people when there's an economic downturn, when something goes wrong in the household, when they're unhealthy. In a country with exactly the same poverty indicators, then it can be that poverty is concentrated in a small part of the population, and that those people stay poor for most of their lives, whilst the experience of poverty is not something for the rest of the population. And we need to understand how these things vary. In some countries there's lots of journeying, in other countries then we find that poverty is very much concentrated in particular social or ethnic or minority groups. A classic sort of example that we used in the book is what happened with Uganda in the 1990s. The case of Uganda was used based on the panel data set from 1992 to 1999 to argue that there was a massive drop in poverty. There was a 20% reduction in poverty over a 7-year period. And the argument that followed from that was, well, the liberalizations that occurred in Uganda, those sorts of things just need to go on, and we need to do it more of that more quickly. But once you start to look at the poverty dynamics in Uganda, what's happening at the individual household level, well, actually 30% of households in Uganda life appears to have got better from an income poverty perspective, but the 10%, they've been non-poor households who become poor. Saying to those 10%, we've got to do more of the same because this is good for you. is clearly not a very wise thing. And this is why the participatory poverty analysis in Uganda often challenged the quantitative analysis when people were being told life's getting better for everyone. Well, if you were part of that 10% of the population whose living standards have dropped dramatically, which isn't the case. So we definitely need to look at that. It's important then for how it impacts on policy. If you're in a country where there is large amounts of temporary, transient poverty, then in fact temporary measures, unemployment insurance, microfinance and those sorts of devices may be what you need, retraining. If you're in a country where people are trapped in poverty, then you need quite different approaches. You need long-term social protection, and you probably also need to be looking at how you approach forms of discrimination that may be keeping certain castes, certain ethnic groups trapped in poverty. And finally, we've got this whole question about, which Tony could add more on, about what to do about poverty spells. Whether when people spend periods in poverty, whether we should place the same value on those, or whether poverty which people have experienced in the past should be discounted because it's present-day poverty, which is what we should be worrying about or not. The multidimensionality I mentioned already, it's well established in static poverty analysis. People are using capability approaches, using livelihood approaches, using human development approaches. But Andy McKay and I, a couple of years ago, did a survey of 26 panel data sets that were being used for poverty dynamic analysis. And 23 of those were only looking at income or expenditure poverty when they looked at poverty dynamics. They weren't looking at health status or at nutrition or at other factors. So it's time that poverty dynamics caught up with that. Already talked about the intergenerational transmission of poverty, but multidimensionality is really important with that, particularly to look at things like education, to understand what the factors are that deny children access to education and mean that they will probably never be literate or not. Finally, it's one of the several chapters in the book look at poverty traps and actually look at how people are trapped in poverty, particularly when they have too few assets to be able to take advantage of market opportunities. And the work by our American colleagues on this indicates that certainly in many rural economies, the idea that people will be able to benefit from economic growth simply doesn't work out because many poor people have so few assets they simply cannot actually command the assets and get access to employment that would allow them to escape from poverty. Okay, Tony.
Good. I'll just slide through.